Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz returning for The Mummy 4. You know, back when they did that Dark Universe thing, I thought, especially since they wanted it to be an action adventure shared universe thing rather than horror, which was bizarre considering it was horror characters. But the Mummy series that Brendan Fraser starred in, that's what that was. It was an action adventure. It wasn't a horror. There's the creepy monster mummy in there, and he was very menacing and all that. But it was more like Indiana Jones meets the Mummy, which that could have been an Indiana Jones movie. You know, he goes to an old tomb and the mummy comes to life, that kind of thing. But anyway, that's what they achieved, and it at least had two really good movies. The third one, And if that's the tone that you wanted for Dracula and the Wolfman and stuff, you could have spun it out of these movies, yeah. But anyway, that flopped and burned. So now they're just gonna, hey, let's revive this with Brendan and Rachel. So Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz are officially set to reunite for The Mummy 4, making the long-awaited return of Rick O'Connell and Evelyn Carnahan O'Connell to Universal's fan-favorite franchise. Probably do a send-off for the kids because they'd be old now. The trades confirmed the new movie is moving forward with directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Glay, maybe? Also known as Radio Silence. What? Are they a band? Update. The Hollywood Reporter says Mummy 4 is not a reboot. Don't call it a reboot. It's been a sequel for years and will ignore the events of the third film. Okay. Now, the third one, they went to China for a Chinese mummy. So okay, they're just gonna jump from the events of the from the second one. Well, now Imhotep ended up going to hell. So can he escape? I don't know. Or they'll have a different mummy. I don't know. Anyway, Fraser and Weisz last starred together in The Mummy Returns. Well, no, they starred together in 2008's Tomb Raider. The new film puts them back at the center of the adventure. A major shift as the franchise is stalled with 2008's Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and Universal's failed 2017 Mummy reboot starring Tom Cruise. And that was another one. Now, the Tom Cruise one, it tried to amp up the horror elements to it, but at the same time, they tried to do both. To where Tom Cruise is playing this, well, action hero. He did a lot of action stunts in it and that sort of thing, which is what he's known for. And certainly because, you know, the Mission Impossible and the like. And I don't know. It was just too much of the same thing. They probably would have, even though you had to introduce a new cast maybe or whatever, or a handoff from this or whatever they're going to do with this one, that probably would have been the better approach. I mean, it was a Kurtzman film, but it turns out Cruise did most of the directing. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was bad. You know, and just they announced this whole thing, and it was going to be this shared universe and all that. And then it was dead on arrival. So fans have been asking for this sequel for years, and Fraser has also openly supported the idea, as long as the tone stayed true to the original films. He previously pointed out that the Cruise version missed the fun. Yeah, because it was trying to be horror and this action-adventure thing. So it didn't work. If they just made it full-on horror, hell, that might have worked. Might have even been cheaper, too. You didn't have to try to do all the effects that they did in the original, or the Brendan Fraser mummies. And, yeah, might have worked. But anyway, that made the 1999 and 2001 entries hits. Universal tapped Bettinelli-Olpin and Glay, the duo behind Ready or Not, and the recent Scream revival. I'm not familiar with it either. They specialize in action, horror, with humor and energy, which lines up with Fraser's view of what The Mummy needs to be. Well, certainly his iteration of it. So, yeah, he would expect that. Universal hasn't commented yet, but this movie signals a return to the tone that made the franchise work. Pulpy adventure, humor, monsters, and a light supernatural touch. instead of a straight horror focus. And I understand. I like the Mummy movies that Brendan Fraser, well, the first two, this third one, you know, him and Rachel are in it and they're good, but couldn't save it. But nevertheless, I didn't like them. But, and if this is kind of, if it was like a send off, you know, but if it's successful, it'll spark a new trilogy, probably with a handoff to the kids and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's the same thing I always come up with the vampire movies. I'm glad that eventually the vampire as a romance story dominated Dracula and all that stuff for the longest time. And then finally you got them to be monsters again, you know, with The Strain and 30 Days of Night and stuff like that. And I wouldn't mind a mummy movie that's a monster movie. But, and again, the formula for the Brendan Fraser movies was really good. And if they can recreate that, yeah, they'll probably have a hit on their hands. So, you know, maybe that'll work out. Hopefully it does. And Brendan Fraser is a good actor. He was in that miniseries with Donald Sutherland. And damn it, I'm forgetting the name. Was it The Truth, I believe? About the Getty story and the kidnapping and all that. But the thing of it is, he played this character who was like this private detective in a cowboy hat that worked for Getty's, and that was Sutherland's character. I wish they would have done fictionalized characters based on on those two templates and made their own detective series because the back and forth between the two, it really worked. It would have been a cool show, I think, but didn't happen. The last thing I heard about him was he was in the Batgirl movie, and the only praise I heard about that, the people who actually got to see it before it was, you know, banished because of the tax write-off, was that his performance as the villain Firefly was the best part about it, is that he did a really great job in it. And it's kind of sad, but this movie made him a big star, and hopefully it works out for him, and hopefully it's really good. So check that out.